in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And they had to put me in the hospital, but I didn't want to go. And they called and got Mama on the phone, y'all. When Mother came to that hospital, I saw strength coming through the door.
Honors that.
Yeah.
God honors commitment.
Anybody got
and
a praying mother?
in commitment. You know, he will
Not
bless
only
us. It's
the
not
sick
what
and
other people do, it's what we do. And that's the main
Can I
thing. And a
just
lot of
call
times we're only committed when other people are committed or will be committed. And then other people aren't committed, and we're like, I'm not going to keep doing this. You know, nobody else is doing it. I'm not going to keep doing it. But we have to keep in mind that it's an individual walk with God. He sees what we do. You know, he sees what we do. Is that we may be in a group with people, but it's an individual thing that takes place. So we're going to talk a little bit about being committed. And we're going to start with Genesis, the book of Genesis, chapter 22. And I'm using my pages. Genesis chapter 22, reading verse 1 and 2. And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham and said unto him, Abraham, he said, behold, here I am. And he said, take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moab, and offer him there for a burnt offer upon one of the mountains, which I will tell of thee. And we all know this story, but here is saying, you know, where God tempted him. And really what he was doing, he was seeing where his commitment was, where his loyalty was. Was he truly, truly going to do anything that he asked him to do? Because a lot of times we can say we're committed unto God or we're committed unto things, but when things get hard or they get rough or they get tight or things don't go the way we think it should go, then we'll go so far, but that's it. But with God, you know, when you make a commitment, you stand in it, no matter what, how hard it gets, what it looks like, if you're going to be broke behind it, people are going to walk away, it doesn't matter. When you make commitments, you stand in those commitments. And with Abraham, he knew when he followed Christ from the beginning, when he told him to get from his kinship, get from that land and go follow him, that's what he did. It wasn't like when the things got a little rough, and things got rough along the way with him. But he kept following him. So God could see he was faithful unto him. But then he reached and touched something that he loved more than anything. And see, that's when things get a little shaky in our life. And normally, in most people, things get a little shaky when you start messing with their finances. That's usually where you can tell where people's loyalty is and how far they're going to go. If they think they're going to lose a job or gain a job or lose funding or certain things. I mean, people will go with you, but you start touching their funding, or they may lose a house behind you or get a car repossessed or something. It's like, oh, but I can't do that. And with him, he knew what he valued or what he loved the most was his son. He knew that. So then that's why it says he tempted him. You know, it was really just seeing where he was at. And he's like, okay, now this is what I want you to do. You've done all this, but now I want you to do this. This is what I want you to do. I want you to sacrifice your child for me. They say, I want you to kill your child for me. And he was going to do it. He was going to do it. Would we go that far? Are we that committed to God? Do we love God that much if he would come to us in our room in a vision, talk to us or whatever, and tell us something like that to do? Would we do it? Wouldn't we do it? You know, you don't have to answer. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't really know what all we would and wouldn't do. And really it's only through the grace of God that we are who we are. That's why we never should judge people when people do stuff and we say, well, I would have never done that. I would have never went and done that. You don't know what you would have done if you were put in that situation. You don't know that until you're actually put into a situation, until you're cornered, backed up against the wall. You don't know what you will or will not do. That's why each and every day we get up and we ask God, give me the grace, be with me. Allow me to be this person that you want me to do. Allow me to be a witness for you. Allow me to be an example for you. Each and every day. Because each and every day there's trials in these days. There's things that's going to come our way. And without God pulling us through it and allowing us to be who we are, we wouldn't be who we are without him. So with Abraham, when you see that story, he stayed committed unto God. Even when he was going to tell him to get rid of his son that in his case, look how long he waited for him. I mean, he had a son that basically was a miracle child even in the first place, that he wanted forever. Let us wait for 80 years, 90 years for something, that means so much to us, and then say we got to let it go. But he did, because why? Because even though he loved his child, he loved God so much more. And see, that's where we have to get to the point when we're making commitments or when we're doing things in life. We're not doing it unto people. First of all, everything we do, we should do with a cheerful heart. And anything you do, you should be doing it unto God, because God should get the glory out of everything and all things that we do. And if God's not in the midst of it in the first place, you shouldn't be doing it anyways. Or why are you doing it? Is it just self-gain? But if you're doing it because you think it's going to be pleasing to God when you start out doing it, why do we start out doing it? And then when it's not going the way we want it to go, or the people is not involved that we want involved, or we didn't get the funding that we thought we were going to get, or we didn't get the fame or the glory that we wanted, then we step away. Was it ever about God, or was it always about you? Or we get attitudes, or we get angry. Is it about God? It's about you. Because if it's about God, you should be feeling good each and every day, because it's like, hey, I'm doing this unto God. If the door opens, it opens. If it don't, it don't. I'm just trying to please God. But if you're wanting the door open because of you, then you get angry. Then you get mad. Then you get upset. Now you don't want to do it no more. Now you don't want to help out. You don't want to do the things you were doing because it's not working the way you want it to go. Sometimes things get a little bit shaky just to see where you are. Sometimes things, sometimes I've seen where God just ruffles your feathers just a little bit to see how where you're going to be at. I mean, it's easy to be loving when people are being nice to you. You can say you're the most humblest person there is. But what if somebody gets in your face and cusses you out, gets no to you? Where are you at then? You still just as humble? Or do you say it's okay as long as they stay in their space? I'm okay, just don't get but so close. I can be this, but just you're too close to me. You know what I'm saying? What's our limit? Or can they actually get in your face where they touch your nose with their nose? Can they get that close to you? And you still can be humble. Where are you at? Or maybe you don't really know. But the point is, we don't always know what we can and cannot do. But it's so quick to point at other people and judge them because they've done something that you would have never done. You don't know what you would do without God actually being there helping you through things. But the point is how we should be. We should be like God says we're supposed to be. What would Jesus do? What would he do if somebody got in his face? He would still be Jesus. He would still be loving. He would be praying for him. He wouldn't swing. He wouldn't hit him. Think about it. We're supposed to be like him. We may not be like him. We're not Jesus, but we're supposed to be trying to be like him. So some of the things that we fall short on, we could be more like him. Some of the things we wouldn't have to get to the next level. Sometimes people flip out because they hear something that somebody say. They wasn't even in their face. They just heard it and they flipped out. Things like that shouldn't affect us. If we're living for Christ, it's all about him. And if we keep wavering back and forth, the only person you're affecting is your own self. You're affecting your own self because those blessings that they're dangling that could be yours, you're walking from them. And then when you meet Christ, when that day comes and say, well, I didn't get this, I didn't go there. Hey, every time I went to hand you something, you stepped away because we couldn't stay committed to anything. Like the scripture, it says in James, it says, when you're tossed to and from, like the waves in the sea, he says that person will receive nothing. You want this day, but then the next day you want that. Like a person that's going to school, they start out, they're going to be a scientist. They do 2 years into it. Now they want to be a doctor. 2 more years into that. Now they want to be a teacher. 2 more years into that. Now they want to be this. You're constantly this and this, and you're accomplishing nothing. Because you're here this little bit, you're here that little bit, you hear that little. So you're getting places, but you're not really getting the ultimate anything because you're not standing firm in anything. You want to do this, until the math's a little bit too hard. You want to do this until someone comes in the class you didn't like. You want to do this until the teacher didn't treat you like you thought they should have taught you, you know. So then you switch up. You know, you were set on that, but you allow people to change and switch you up, and then you're not where God would have you to be at. Knowing that he says that he orders your steps. So you have to know, if you've heard something from God and you stepped out in God, then you keep stepping in God. You don't switch up and change because now somebody's stepping beside you that you didn't want them beside you. Sometimes you'll have thorns within your life. You'll have these things that'll make you like, oh, Lord, help me. But you know what? You get stronger in your faith when you stand in there, because you start to see where God can work in your life and do things in your life. If you don't never go through anything, you don't have those trials and those tribulations, you're not going to see just how mighty God is. The more you go through, and the more you see he can pull you out of things, the more you can see what he can do for you. Not just seeing what he can do for other people. You'll start to realize that my God can do anything. I've realized in my life that I truly serve an amazing God. Not from what other people saying, but because I've seen him amazing in my life. Time and time and time and time again. He is truly an amazing God. But you'll never see how amazing he is, because soon as a trial comes your way and something hard comes in your way, you walk away, you let go, or you go the other way. You don't see that our God can walk through walls. Our God can take buildings down. Our God can remove a whole state for you. Amen. The thing about God is that if he speaks something in your life, and if God says it's going to happen, then it's going to happen. Who can stop God from something happening if God says it's going to happen? Not if you say it's going to happen, but if God says it's going to happen, who can stop God from accomplishing what he says is going to take place? Right. Who's big enough, strong enough, wealthy enough, powerful enough, has more wisdom? Who can do it when God says it's going to be done? So why do we worry about things when things come our way, when we know we're stepping in the will of God? Now, if you're stepping in yourself, that's on you. But if you're stepping in yourself, why does it matter if it comes to pass anyways? If it's not God the one saying he wants it to happen in your life. But if you know that he's truly ordering your steps, then in the end, you know you're blessed no matter what it looks like. You know that God is taking you someplace. Why? Because he says you are supposed to be the head, not the tail. So until you are the head, not the tail, you know he's still moving within your life. So you don't got to worry about anything that's taking place. You just have to get to a point that we get committed to things that we're doing. I know one of the things we always done with our children, when they would join something and commit to something, they had to follow it through. If they joined the basketball team, it didn't matter how great they were, how bad they were, who the coach was, what the players were like, if they liked them, no matter if they were fair to them, whatever. If they joined it, they were part of that team, they were at least going to do it through that year. Now, when the season was over, they didn't have to join again. But if they made the commitment, they had to do it, because when you're committed to people in a team, you affect the whole team when you back out. And it's not fair. And do you think God likes that? Is that something he's going to honor when you're affecting other people's life? Because now you're not just affecting your life, you're affecting someone else's life. You know, so you're doing things that consequences are going to come on you. So when we say something, when you make commitments, we have to follow through it. We have to follow through. We say we're going to be someplace, we should be there. If we're doing something, we're going to do it. You can't say, I'm doing this, and then don't show up. You can't be on a football team and then 10 of the players say, I ain't coming today because I drank too much last night, or I had fun, or I just don't feel like it. My body aches. I'm just not going to show up. You affect the entire team. You know, and it's within sports, it's with anything, because we're all part of something. We all have certain things that we offer, and a lot of times we think what we have to offer is not a big thing, but if it's your job to come in and clean before certain things happen and you don't do it, then other people are walking in filth, you know. You say it's not a big deal. All I'm doing is to clean a person, but that's your job to do that. That's what you said you were going to do, especially when you're saying you're going to do things. That's why you shouldn't be so quick to join things and say things unless it's within your heart and you say, you know, I'm doing this under God. And then when you're doing it, you're not doing it for the people, you're doing it under God. That's why you can always be the best you can be. When people get married, you know, you're making a commitment. God says you become one. When you go into that marriage, you're wanting to be the best person you can be. Not looking at what the other person does. It's not they get up, they got an attitude, now you got an attitude. Oh, you want to speak to me? Don't speak to me later. You want to speak to me this morning? You want to help me out this morning? Don't say nothing to me now. I don't have nothing to say to you. Because now what are you doing? You're allowing them to control you. What you're supposed to do. You know, when I got married, it was my job to know how to be a wife. That was my job. And that's what I asked the Lord, teach me how to be a good wife. They were the things I always prayed about. I wanted to be a great wife and I wanted to be a great mother. That was important to me. That might wasn't important to anybody else. That was my things that I wanted to be. An excellent wife and an excellent mother. And in order for to do that, that's something that I had to pray about every day. It wasn't like just do it once a month, once a year. It was an everyday thing. Waking up, Lord, help me. Show me how to be a good wife. Show me how to be a good mother. And I still do it. I still do it because I want to be pleasing unto the Lord. Because in the end, that's what I'm answering to. It isn't how my husband treats me or how my kids are acting or they're not following the rules I told them. You know, yes, I want them to do certain things. And yes, I train them to, and hopefully they do some of the things. But if they do or if they don't, that doesn't change me from being the mother I was called to be. That doesn't change me from being the wife I was called to be. In the end, no matter how they act, I'm still going to be me. If they get it with an attitude or not, I'm still showing them love. I'm still going to smile. I'm still going to do for them. If they want to do for me or not, that doesn't stop me from doing for them. Because that's me. I'm doing this unto God because this is what I want to do. And that's why we have to get to the point in our life that everything we do, we're doing unto God. Because he's looking at it. And in the end, I've always asked him to lead God and direct me, and I've made sure the things I do in my life are pleasing to God, and he blesses me. He blesses me. He takes care of me. Because why? Because I'm honorable unto him. So when I get on my knees and I ask him for something, yes, it comes to pass. I've never went on fast and prayed for things that God didn't allow to come to pass in my life. God blesses me. You know, he touches the things that I want to be touched. He opens doors that I ask him to open. Why? Because everything I do unto him. Because he is my everything. As much as I love my husband and I love my kids and I try to be this good person, they don't even come close to God. He is my everything. So they can't bend me or make me attitudes and moods and whatever. I can have a smile on my face because he touches me. I feel his presence when I wake up in the morning. When I lay my head on the bed at night, I feel the peace and the presence knowing that he surrounds me. And ultimately, no one can only do but so much to me anyways. Why? Because God's in control of me. We have to get to the point in our life knowing who is in control of us. Who are we serving? We serve an awesome God. An awesome God. It doesn't matter if people live for him. Like I say time and time again, if they believe in him or if they don't believe in him, he is still God and he's in control. He's in control of the saved and the unsaved. He is still in control. He's going to have the last word. So he's on my side. This is who I please. This is who I please. So I know if I get up and have an attitude or I'm not treating people the way I should be or I'm not being humble and loving, he's going to deal with me because he expects me to be a certain way. But he does so much for me. I want to serve him. And it's not just the financial things that he does for me. It's having a sane mind. It's having peace. It's having joy. It's having my body healthy. All of those things he's given me. And I don't take it for granted. So the only thing I can do is be pleasing to him. That's my way of saying thank you, Lord, for being so good to me every day. Is by being the person that he's called me to be. And that's where we got to get to our point. And you do that, like I say, you start from being committed. You have to, first of all, be committed to God. You got to be committed to yourself when you're saying things. You know, you can't keep switching back and forth. If you don't know what you want to do, take time and say, Lord, what do you want me to do? What would make me happy? So we can get on that path and then keep stepping. But that's the only way we're going to get to another level in life is if we're committed to God. But like this story, like I said, with Abraham, he was committed unto God. Even when it touched him the most of taking his son, he still said, this is what you want me to do. This is what I'm going to do. Didn't question. He just instantly gathered his son and started going towards what he thought the Lord wanted him to do. But it just was to see, would you do this? Because I know you would do all this. I see you're faithful to this. But if I come in and take your job from you, if you lose your home, if your loved one walks away from you, you know, if this happens, would you still love me? You know, would you still love him if he starts taking some of your loved ones from you? Would you still love him? You have to get to the point that he is God no matter what. He is God. No matter what takes place, no matter what you have or you don't have, He is still God, and that's who you serve, and that's who you worship, and that's where all your praise should go to Him, unto Him, no matter what takes place in your life. So we have to get more dedicated to Him. If you go to the book of Daniel, just talking about that, he was another person that was extremely dedicated. Daniel, chapter 6. And just going over, I won't read all of it. Daniel's a big story to read. But even when you look at the book of Daniel, Daniel was a praying person. He prayed all the time. He prayed 3 times a day. When he got older, he was doing that. I mean, done it forever. But if you look at Daniel, if you take it back, even if you go back before chapter 6, if you go back a little bit further, even when Daniel was a young teenager, Daniel was dedicated to God, because even when they took him and they wanted him to eat certain foods, he didn't want to do it because that wasn't the type of foods that he thought his God wanted him to have. So he always took stands for things that he believed in. It's like, well, just let me eat this. He always took stands. It's like, just because everybody else is doing this, he didn't have to do it. You know, a lot of times teenagers have to be with the in crowd. Things they don't even want to do. They just do it because they want to be with the in crowd. He wasn't like that. He knew, this is what I want to do. Just let me show you. Just let me eat these certain things and you can see I can be so much healthy. Now, God had favor on him, so he allowed him to do that and seen the certain things that he did. But he always was dedicated. So even when he goes there and he's praying this 3 times a day, people are trying to find fault within him. A lot of times when you do right and you're living for God, people don't like that. Jealousy will come in. So they want you to do something wrong. They want to find something that you can do so they can come against you. And that's what they were doing with him. But they couldn't find fault in him because he loved God. So there was no fault to be found in him. So they got to create something so they can come against him. And the only thing they could come against was the fact that they knew he was dedicated to his God. They knew that. So they had to get him to stop praying to his God. So they come up with this creed that anybody's praying other than besides to the king, then basically you're going to be thrown into the lion's den. Because they knew that was something that he was doing. And when Daniel hears about it, he hears what they do. He overhears them, he hears it. He opens up his window and he still goes up there and he prays to his God like he always did 3 times a day, because that's who he was serving. And they seen him and they came against him. And of course he gets thrown into the lion's den because he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. But it didn't matter. Why? Because he knew who he was serving. He didn't know if the lions was going to eat him up or not. He didn't know. I mean, when some things we're thrown into, we know the God that we're served. But it doesn't mean that this fear don't try to come on us. It's like, oh man, you know, God, where are you at? Things can get, and it may not be lions, but it can still be things within our life that are so great that if God don't show up, it's like, oh man, I'm going to lose it all. You know, I need you. Like right now, I need you. But in his case, he was thrown in there. You know, God could have stopped it, but God likes to show up and let people know, I am God. You know, they belong to me. Do what you want to do, but I'm going to pull them out of this. And he was thrown in there. And when he was thrown in there, God shuts the lion's mouth. And the king did not want him thrown in there. But if you see, he said he fasted that whole night. He wouldn't eat or anything. He didn't want music played. He was actually fasting for Daniel. But he had to stick to his word. Why? Because that was a commitment that he set. See, back then the word meant something. Now we say anything, and if it don't fit with us, I don't care, I ain't doing it. I know I said it. It fitted for me then, but it don't fit for me now. But back then, which still should be the same now, your word should mean something. It shouldn't be your signature. It should be your word. If you say it, it means something. It means something to God. He says you're going to be accountable for every word every idle word that you say. So it means something to him. It might not mean something to people around you, but it should mean something to you. Your word should be very important. So the king did not want to put him in there, but because that's the commitment that he said that he would do if people were serving other people, he had to stick to it. So then he stays up all night and he fasts for Daniel, and Of course, he gets up early in the morning, because as soon as he could go there to open it up, he calls for Daniel. Daniel answers him, and of course, he was protected. But Daniel stayed faithful. He didn't allow people to change him. And what he didn't allow people to do was take him from the commitment that he had unto God, because he knew God was his everything. And because of that, he was saved. But not only was he saved, everybody had to start serving the God that Daniel served, because they saw just how mighty his God was. And everybody that came against him, they all got thrown into the lion's den. The people that came against him, their wives and their kids. And what do you see with that? When you see the wives and the kids, it goes to show that headships of a household can affect that household. The headship was coming against Daniel. Didn't say the wives and the kids was there. Then men were coming against him, But when they got thrown in the lion's den, it said the wives and their children, the whole household got thrown into there. But the Bible says blessings fall down from generations to generations, but curses fall down from generations to generations too. You gotta know what you're lined up with. If you had headships in the household, we may not be pleased with everything that they do, but you need to pray for your husband. There are headships of this household. Blessings can flow down because of it. Pray for them. Don't be out talking about them. Pray for them, fast for them if they're not doing what they should do. Give them back to God. God can change anything. He can change your household. He can change this whole world. He can definitely turn your household around. I don't care how bad it looks. He can turn it around, but you got to believe. You got to believe, and you have to be committed to the things that you say you're doing. Can't be praying for things and you're doing what you want to do. We got to be first right, being faithful. And then Daniel was right. He was faithful. He believed in the God that he was serving. He stood by him and was like, know what, hey, I prayed for it all this time. I served him ever since I was a youth. I'm going to keep serving him. They got to do what they have to do. I'm not going to shut my window. He was okay with the window being open, serving his God, because he wasn't ashamed of who he served. He knew who he served. And that's where we got to get to the point, knowing who we serve, standing up and taking stands for the God that we serve. This is what, okay, everybody else stopped it. I'll do it myself. I'm going to keep doing it. It ain't about you. I'm doing this unto God. And so many of our blessings just flow over our head because we start and we stop. We start and we stop because we let people change us, because it's not going the way we wanted to go. Daniel would have been a perfect time that he could have said, you know what, okay, I can switch up. I don't have to pray 3 times. I can wait till it gets dark. I can just pray when ain't nobody around. But he's like, no, he knew who he served. He knew. And see, when you get to the point that you know who you serve, that's when you start taking stands. And that's when you can't waver, because you know who you're serving. When you're not for sure, you got that doubt there, people can sway you because you're not for sure. But when you know who got your back, who's covering you, you know where your blessings are coming from, you know who's opening your doors, you know who's taking care of your finances, you know who's healing you, you know who's giving you the wisdom. When you know that you know where that's coming from, can't nobody sway you. Because hey, in reality, you ain't doing nothing for me.